You know, there's an invisible war being fought literally all around us, and even inside our own bodies, every single day. So today, we're going to break down the enemy's playbook. We're talking about communicable diseases. Okay, so we all know the word pandemic a little too well these days, right? But what's the real difference between that, an epidemic, and something called an endemic disease? Let's clear this up real quick, because it sets the stage for everything else. So an endemic disease, that's something that's just always around in a certain area. Think malaria. An epidemic is when you get a sudden, totally unexpected spike in cases. And a pandemic? Well, that's just an epidemic that decides to go on a world tour. Getting these straight is super important for what's coming next. Now you'd think, with all our incredible advances in medicine, we'd have this stuff figured out. But the truth is, infectious diseases are still one of the biggest causes of illness and death all over the world.
And this is so much bigger than just one person getting sick. An outbreak can create these massive ripple effects, touching entire families, communities, even whole nations. This is why understanding how these invisible threats work, well, it matters to every single one of us.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does a tiny little microorganism launch a full-scale invasion of the human body? I mean, what's its playbook? Let's dive in. Okay, so at its absolute core, it's pretty simple. You've got an invader, a pathogen, right? Like a bacteria or a virus, and it basically sets up shop inside a host. But here's the kicker. It's contagious. It's got this ability to jump from one person to the next.
But here's something really interesting. For a disease to really take hold, it's not just about the germ itself, what scientists call the agent. You actually need two other things to line up perfectly. A vulnerable host, that's us, and the right environment for them to meet. It's like this perfect, unlucky storm of all three factors coming together.
So how do these little agents travel? Well, they've got two main highways. You've got direct spread, which is exactly what it sounds like, person to person, maybe from a handshake or a sneeze. But then there's indirect spread. And this way is a lot sneakier. It uses things like the air or contaminated water or even a doorknob as its getaway car to find the next host.
Okay, to really see this playbook in action, let's look at a really high-stakes example. We're talking about an attack on our most protected, most vital organ, the brain.
So your brain and your spinal cord, they're wrapped in these three protective layers called the meninges. Now, I want you to just imagine those layers becoming dangerously inflamed, all swollen up. That is meningitis.
And wow, when you see it side by side, the difference is just stark. On one side, you've got the calm, protective layers of a healthy brain, and then on the other, you can just see the inflammation, that angry, red, swollen tissue. It's a brain under siege. This is literally what the battlefield looks like.
So the big question is, how do these things even get in there? I mean, pathogens have to break through the brain's ultimate security system, the blood-brain barrier. Think of it like this super tightly packed wall of cells designed to keep all threats out. But once an invader breaches it, oh boy, the body's defenses just go into total overdrive, triggering this massive inflammatory response called a cytokine storm. It's basically the immune system freaking out, and that panic causes all this dangerous swelling and pressure inside the skull.
And the body's response to this invasion? That's what creates those classic telltale signs. You get a high fever, a really intense headache from all that pressure, and a stiff neck. These are the body's emergency alarms, basically screaming that the central nervous system security has been breached.
So to figure out who the intruder is, doctors have to do some detective work. They analyze the cerebrospinal fluid, and the clues they find are almost like something out of a crime show. With bacterial meningitis, for example, the fluid is all cloudy, it's packed with white blood cells, and it's low on glucose. Why? Because the bacteria are literally eating it. And protein levels are way up. It's a microscopic crime scene that points them right to the culprit.
But here's the thing. Winning that initial battle against the infection, that doesn't always mean the war is over. The aftermath, all that collateral damage, can be just as devastating, if not more so.
So what does happen after the fever breaks? Let's talk about the long-term consequences, because this is where this story takes a really surprising and sometimes tragic turn that a lot of people just don't know about.
You see, that intense inflammation during the infection can leave behind permanent scars, and this can lead to some really serious, lifelong challenges. We're talking about things like hearing loss, recurring seizures, and even cognitive difficulties. The damage can be truly profound.
But here's where it gets really wild. An infection can sometimes play a trick on your immune system. It can act like a spy, wearing a disguise that looks almost exactly like our own cells. There's a name for this. It's called molecular mimicry. And a truly mind-blowing example of this is a condition called PANDAS.
Okay, so get this. A common strep throat infection, something tons of kids get, can trigger this autoimmune response, where the body's own defenses get confused and start attacking the brain by mistake. And the result? It can cause a sudden, almost overnight onset of severe OCD or tics or anxiety in a child. Just think about that for a second. A simple throat infection leading to a complex neuropsychiatric disorder. It's incredible.
So, as you can see, there are a bunch of different ways an infection can cause lasting harm. It's not just one thing. It could be a direct invasion of our central nervous system, it could be that autoimmune confusion we just talked about, or it could just be the long-term damage from chronic inflammation and the toxins that the invaders leave behind. Okay, so when you're faced with this invisible and frankly treacherous battlefield, how do we even begin to defend ourselves and our communities? Well, the answer is all about being proactive. And listen, when it comes to bacterial meningitis, there is absolutely no time to waste. I mean zero. It is a top-tier medical emergency. The clock is ticking from moment one, and starting antibiotics immediately, sometimes even before the diagnosis is 100% confirmed, is absolutely critical to preventing the worst outcomes. You know, a really fantastic way to think about public health defense is something called the Swiss cheese model. And it's a perfect analogy. The idea is that no single defense is perfect, right? Each one has holes, just like a slice of Swiss cheese. But when you stack all those layers together, things like vaccinations, hand washing, good sanitation, it becomes nearly impossible for a pathogen to find a straight path all the way through. So what are our strongest layers in that stack? Well, things like good hygiene and health education, they're obviously crucial. But our single greatest tool, without a doubt, is vaccination. It has been a total game changer, dramatically reducing the most dangerous forms of bacterial meningitis around the world. And all of this is just a powerful reminder, isn't it? While the war against these invisible diseases is never ending, we are not defenseless, not by a long shot. We have this powerful arsenal of tools to fight back. So the real question isn't if we can fight back, it's how well we're going to use these tools to prepare for the next threat. Because it's really not a matter of if, but when.